Welcome to the 2020 Year Ahead Astrological Forecast. We're going to try and keep this brief. We've got some major overarching themes throughout the year, and this will be a grand, glorious, and pivotal year. So hang in there and let's see what the cosmos has in store for us ahead. Okay, so this brings us to the big floor show we've all been waiting for, the months of July to December. This will literally be the finishing baking time on the cake that we've been working on all year long. Oh, baby. So the focal point as we move through these months through the end of the year are going to be Capricorn, the sign, symbolism, and energy and themes of Capricorn, as well as Pluto, right? Oh, fun stuff. Literally all about power and leadership, but also social order and structure, control issues, and boundaries, right? It's going to be interesting. Now, with that said, Mars will be squaring all of these Capricorn planets from July through the end of the year. So at various stages, each one of these Capricorn planets is getting hit, which is exaggerating or further amplifying the challenges that are coming with this and the need to make decisive action, make decisions and take action about the issues that are represented or presented at these times. One of the things that's interesting to note is that Mars is the lower octave of Saturn. In your astrology, there are higher and lower vibrations. So when we start talking about outer planets, they are higher vibrations of personal planets. And we did a whole thing about that with outer planet children. And I'll spare you here. But Mars has an affinity to Saturn because Saturn is the higher octave of Mars in many ways. So Mars squaring something that it's its own mentor, as it were, is of very big significance and makes the cruelty that is possible with Mars-Saturn even more amplified. It also makes the ability to build bigger, better, faster, stronger, more efficiently and mobilize against and create great feats of brute force, strength, and building also possible. So we can accomplish great things at this time. We can also be our most debased level of living at this time as well. So lowest common denominator or highest possible aspiration of building and execution. Could be one or the other, but typically it won't be both. In July, we've got an eclipse at 13 Capricorn while Mercury is stationing direct. The same month, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto are going retrograde. July will not be a fun month. Oh, I know you wanted to hear that, didn't you? So the themes that I would tell you for July basically are slow down, slow down, slow down, slow down. And also, believe it or not, this is going to be a much easier time to make less impulsive decisions and less rash and emotionally driven decisions. So use this time to your advantage. Come August, come August is when we're in the heat of summer, both astrologically and seasonally for those of us living in the climates where this is summertime for us. For those of you who are in the colder climates, it's going to be the coldest of cold months. Uranus will be stationing retrograde while Venus and Mars are squaring Pluto at its direct station degree, which will occur next month. So with this said, I would look for a couple of things. One, with Uranus stationing retrograde, people tend to be more conservative and more conformist at this time. So there may be a lot of withdrawal or backing away from anything that looks like it's risk-taking or provocative or progressive. There's a lot of pull back kind of energy with Uranus stationing retrograde. So people are going to feel more conservative in their choices and decisions and what they'll tolerate. It won't, ouch, it's not permanent. It's just that this is what's going on. So this also means in terms of your relationships, because intimacy is highlighted this month. So this is another one of those highly sexy months through the year. Venus and Mars will be squaring, while this is happening, Venus and Mars will be squaring the Pluto station direct degree, which is occurring next month. And what that does is it amplifies the desire and need for intimate adult time. with other, consenting adults. So we may see more of that. But with Uranus station retrograde, people are going to be less likely to take risks in terms of their partners. So monogamy may be a big topic of discussion this month. But certainly people who are in committed relationships or in familiar relationships will benefit from these transits because people are going to want more of the good stuff, but only from people that they know. So use that to your advantage as well. When we get down to September, this is when things get a little weird. Mars will go retrograde in September, but Jupiter and Saturn will go direct. So this is, remember, Mars retrograde is the thinker, Mars direct is the doer. So Mars retrograde in September will have us all kind of stopping where we're at and reflecting and thinking and making plans, which is fantastic. Jupiter and Saturn stationing direct will further emphasize this. So September is going to be a very, very big planning stage. So many of us will be evaluating, which is also the key word for this particular combination, evaluating where we're at with things and finding better ways to do things or looking for better ways to do things. So September, even though Mars is retrograde, and we tend to think of Mars as energy and action and efficiency and productivity, Mars retrograde will actually be a very productive month because Jupiter and Saturn are going direct. So the productivity we're seeing may not be an outward action as much as outward thinking. So this is definitely a planning month for future execution. Come October, Pluto will finally be direct. Now, we've been feeling Pluto retrograde for this station, the retrograde turning direct for months now. And certainly August, what is it, July, August, September, because we feel the outer planets further back than we do the inner planets. So we feel them much further ahead of time. Pluto stationing direct in October is a release from obstacles and nonsense. So we will finally be getting the hell out of our own way on a mass level and moving forward. On a personal level, if you want to know what this Pluto station direct is going to do for you, look for the areas where Pluto is in your chart. So where Pluto is sitting in your chart at 22 Capricorn, the planets it's aspecting, the houses that it's in, all of these things give you some clues as to where you're going to be released from in restrictions and obstacles. Now, mind you, you may be released from restrictions and obstacles in ways that you weren't happy about, but you'll still be released. And it's, again, because Pluto is the planet of reformation, it is up to you to make the best out of the situation and make it work for you in the long term. So not all gifts are blessings. Sometimes the things that look like they're the worst thing that could happen to you are the best things that could ever be given to you because it's an opportunity, not a punishment. All right. And then once we get through October, now it's getting better. It's getting better. Things are heating up and heading in the right direction. Mars and Neptune both will also station direct. So now all the planning and thinking and evaluating we were doing in September all the way through October, come November, execute, baby. It's showtime. So we will be moving forward with those grand, better, improved plans that we were working on in September, October, and really putting them out there for the dog and pony show come November. Now, Neptune stationing direct is also very important and very good because remember, Neptune rules not only drama and theater, but compassion and charity. So one of the things we can expect to see in November is a heavy emphasis or a much more entertaining emphasis, I'll put it that way, on theatrics, art, culture, all the things that make life beautiful, right? So entertainment should get a nice big boost in November as well. But also the understanding, appreciation, and expression of charity and compassion will be in full effect with this Mars going direct. The two together, we should see a lot of championing of causes and championing of the underdog, which you can never have too much of in this world. It's just a matter of figuring out who exactly is the real underdog here, right? And what is the better cause. They're all good causes. Some are just better than others, depending on where we're at in a life cycle and what we need in terms of global priorities. Okay, and then that brings us to December, which begins our Sagittarius Gemini eclipse cycles. So we're off to a whole brand new world by the time we get to December. But July through November, it's going to be quite the production, quite the big top circus production. So fasten your seatbelts, get some popcorn, and grab yourself a cup of tea. And let's see what happens. August and September 2020. In the words of Winston Churchill, when you're going through hell, keep going. And this, my friends, is the picture of Winston Churchill. Great character. All right. So we got a whole lot of good God Almighty going on in August and September. I'm not going to lie. It's, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. And I really want to get into it, but I think it's a lot, and it's just so it's got me so like, oh my God, I can't even talk. So I'm going to go over some highlights for this hot month of August and September. I imagine summer's going to be stretched out a little longer, so the seasons are off by a couple of months. But I'll put it in the next slide. But yeah, just remember, write it on your calendars. When you're going through hell, keep right on going. So I say the first rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club. The second rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club. Chuck Palahniuk. And if I'm mispronouncing your name, Chuck, I apologize. Okay, kids, there's no way to sugarcoat this. August is going to be hell month. I'm not exaggerating or being facetious. It's just not. Oh my gosh. So, and because it's going to be such a hell month, I'm not going to spend a lot of time getting involved in it here. I don't want to alarm you or panic you, but I do want to give you some stuff to consider so you can make your plans well in advance. First thing, for those of you who are astrologically savvy, consider this. Mars moves into a tight square to those Capricorn planets, all of them, one right after the other. Bing, 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 bing. When this is happening, also, Venus enters Cancer at the beginning of the month on the 9th, and it will then proceed to set up T-squares with both Mars and those Capricorn planets by the end of the month. So there is no relief in sight this month. It's not fun. The translation for those of you who are not astrologically savvy is basically this for future planning, right? Planning in advance. 1, invest in good air conditioning or heating options before August, depending on which climate you're living in during this month. And I'm not joking about that. Seriously, invest in good air conditioning or heating options. Also, plan your vacation during any other month if you can. If you can't, keep your vacation plans as simple and flexible as possible, and maybe even a little close to home to keep the expenses down in case things spiral out of control and get really expensive unexpectedly because of circumstances. And the last thing for the month of August is, yeah, Virginia, you really are being a donkey's ass right now. But then again, so is everyone else. So try not to be too much of a donkey's backside, and maybe dial it down a little bit. I'm just saying, dial the volume down a little bit because you can't hear from all the yelling everywhere else. All right. And now this brings us to September. And because the fun just never stops, September's aspects are a lot like rubbing salt into an already open wound. I know you wanted to hear that, didn't you? So, for those of you who are astrologically savvy, Mars goes retrograde in Aries and will stay on top of a retrograde Saturn. Oh my Lord, literally like the toddler cutting teeth and the sounds of infants wailing at 3 a.m. when you're already sleep deprived. Yeah. On top of this, Mercury will enter Libra and it will then set up a T-square by mid-month to these planets. So we just can't get any relief or satisfaction around here. Now, the good news for September, though, in case you were wondering if there's good news here, for those of you who are not astrologically savvy and those who are, if you weren't sure what you needed to do to cut through the BS in your life, I got news for you, honey pie. You'll definitely figure it out now and with certainty. So cutting through the nonsense and getting to the clarity and making decisive action and actions based on real clear decisions, it's coming. It's coming. So there's good stuff here, but boy, we're really going to work for this. And then in architecture, there is a maxim or an unofficial rule or a guideline. It's a guideline and an unofficial rule that form should follow function. And the idea is that when you're designing a building or some type of structure, it should be designed with its purpose in mind first, and then all of the aesthetics and details and things that make it unique and different and wonderfully signature you should come afterwards. But ultimately, the structure, the original structure that you're starting with, should be built with its intended purpose in mind. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because October and November will be almost like a living display of how this rule works. So in October, we have Mercury stationing retrograde. So, in and of itself, I don't know, not really a big deal. Mercury will station retrograde in Scorpio, and it will change signs to Libra later in the month. But just so you know, Mercury is in the sign of Scorpio stationing. While this is happening, Pluto, almost within the same day, will be stationing direct. So Mercury is going backwards, and now Pluto is moving forward. So these two things together suggest a reconsideration of the deep foundational structures and connections in any entity, right? So in a building, Mercury retrograde and a Pluto direct happening simultaneously would suggest that somewhere deep within the building structures where the connections are made, whether it's the joints between the scaffolding or the floors, or it's the elevator that connects all the floors, the person to any of the floors in the building, or the wiring, the electrical wiring that connects that's deep inside the building, that connects all the different parts of the building to each other so they can communicate with each other. These are the things that are being emphasized in the month of October. The connections inside that are deep inside any given structure or entity in your body as a human being. Mercury retrograde and Pluto direct would have everything to do with neurological wiring in your system, and or the chemical connections, the places where the chemicals connect in your body on an atomic level. With a I could put a picture up, but this presentation going to get long anyway. So if you ask somebody who is a biology or a chemistry person, like they'll tell you, like especially with cells, there's places on the cells where other cells or things will walk along the surface of the cell and find a place to plug into, right? So it has specific like key and lock mechanisms where it will only fit into one place, and once it finds that place, it will go in and lock into position, and now it's connected. So in your body, you even have this connecting spaces on the deep, deep level. With a mother and child, it would be the umbilical cord. It's the thing that connects the two that's deep inside the body. In relationships, it's the same principle. The things that connect us on a very, very deep level, right, and keep us in our relationships is not about our biological urges, and it's not necessarily about our financial needs, although those two things are certainly major driving factors in relationships. Oftentimes, there's deeper connections between people inside relationship that run deeper and are not necessarily articulated because they're just there, right? Like your nervous system is just there, that keep us connected. These are the things that are coming up as a focal point this month, and especially during the month of October. Now, and it also means that this is something that we're going to look at possibly revising or reviewing or making changes to, or addressing needing to make changes to. And this will lead us into November, which we'll talk about in a second. Now, the Pluto station direct is a very big deal. Remember, with outer planets, we feel the stations, the movement of the planet, forward or backward, at least a month, sometimes 2 or 3, ahead of the exact date of the station. So this Pluto station, we've been feeling, if this is October, we've been feeling it in September, we've been feeling it in August, and we may have even been feeling it as far back as July, but definitely August and September, which makes sense considering August and September were already hellscape months. So Pluto stationing, feeling that Pluto station during that time would have emphasized that. So we can expect August and September to be exactly as intense as we're preparing for it to be. So I looked at the Pluto station, and the thing that really struck me, and I think this is important because, and also again, remember, everything I'm talking about is based on my perception of what's going on in the US. I can only keep up with so much news at a time. So I'm aware of what's going on in other parts of the globe, but because I live here, this is more on my daily awareness radar because I'm here in the middle of it. So elections in the United States come up in November. Pluto is making its station direct in October. So Pluto station at this time, this is pretty significant and should and will impact our election, our national consciousness, our mass consciousness come election time. So looking deeper into the Pluto station, it is in the Virgo decadent and Virgo dwadamsha, which indicates that this Pluto and Capricorn station, which has been a huge sticking point all year long, with a Virgo emphasis by decadent dwadamsha, also indicates that this is now the time for getting it right, getting it exactly right in classic Virgo fashion, and being very practical about things, right? Because Virgo brings order out of chaos. Remember that. Virgo brings order out of chaos. Pluto goes deep into the heart of situations, into the darkness nobody wants to deal with, literally elbow deep in the muck and sewage that nobody in their right mind would willingly get themselves involved in unless it was necessary. Pluto is not afraid of those things. So with Pluto stationing direct, and that with that heavy Virgo emphasis on this particular degree, one of the things that I would look for is some very radical, almost surgically precise, cutting away the BS or the bullshit and figuring out how to fix the damn problem, right? So solutions and problem solving with absolute clarity, no BS, no propaganda, no nonsense, right? Get to the damn point and let's fix this thing and move on. Classic Pluto station direct with a Virgo emphasis by decadent dwadamsha. So we should not only see this in our leadership, but we should also see and feel that same need to get over our issues, like get over your stuff and get on with it, right? That same pragmatic, practical problem-solving mindset in our personal lives as well. So October is going to be a powerful month. Now, this Pluto station direct will be conjunct Saturn. It's a little wide, but it's still there. And it will be squaring Mars. Now, this sounds awful because, Jesus, Mars, Saturn, and Pluto, oh my God, like it's like being stabbed in the eyeball with a fork 100 times. But the other side of that is that this will give us a clarity and a commitment to and a sense of purpose that we may not have been able to muster and coalesce together prior to now. So literally with the determination and the precision and the pragmatic focus on solving a problem of a surgeon, right? So think of surgeons, field surgeons in the military in war zones, right? This is kind of that mentality that they have to do their job in those conditions. That mentality, not those circumstances, but that mentality, that hyper focus, get the damn job done, right? We've got to do this thing. This is the reality of the situation. This is what needs to happen. And this is for the greater good of all. Remember, surgeon, medical person, healer. This is the energy we can expect to see in October. And that is also the energy we should embrace, right? Fix the problem for the good of all. So there you go. And of course this now, and that's the form. So in architecture, this would be the form. We're building a vessel around this form, this purpose. Come November, now we're putting the window dressing on it, right? Now we're putting the sides and the walls and the windows and the aesthetics on it. In November, and this is where the cavalry comes in, we get some relief from what has been a really long few months, starting back in August. In November, we will have Mercury, Mars, and Neptune turning direct. Finally, thank God, right? So Mercury turning direct, things are going to, schedules and conversations and documents, information, all the things that make life possible, which is basically communication and connection, all those things are going to open up and smooth out. We're so okay with that. Also, Mars going direct means we're going to be less clumsy and much more smooth in our operations and our ability to move forward with projects, things, and ourselves. Mars, prior to now, while it has been retrograde, it's not been lovely, and it's been a bit of a clumsy oaf in many ways. So if it hasn't been clumsy, it's been afraid, because Mars retrograde can represent the coward, or it can represent somebody who's accident prone. And Mars retrograde also is the introvert. So all the things that Mars is, when up prior to now, it has been retrograde, so it's been holding back those gifts. making it very difficult to move forward. Mars direct, on the other hand, now puts action into the equation. So Mars retrograde is the thinker, Mars direct is the doer. So that's the easier way to look at it. So scratch the comments about cowardice. Actually, you can see cowardice in a couple of other parts, other ways in a chart. So it's not specific to Mars retrograde. Anyway, so Mars retrograde is the thinker, Mars direct is the doer. So now that Mars is moving direct, things are going to start to happen. People are going to put some action behind their words, which we love. Neptune stationing direct also means that compassion will be back on the table, and people will be opening up their hearts and their empathy buttons and all the things that make it easier to live in a civilized world where arts and culture and compassion are the high orders of the day. So we're okay with that. We are so okay with that because it will have been a long summer and fall up until now. Mars will make its station in the Leo decadent and the Libra duad, so we can expect any actions taken at this time to be full of drama, theater, performance. There's definitely a whole lot of showmanship going on with actions taken right now. And it may be just because we're celebrating finally actually being able to do something for a change. Who knows? We'll see how that goes. The Neptune station will be occurring in the Cancer decadent and the Libra duadamsha. So everything in terms of our compassionate natures and our charity and all of our spiritual values, you know, the things that go with Neptune, will also be very much directed at nurturing and fairness. So nurturing people, feeding people, making sure people are fed, children, you know, and families will become high priorities, as well as making sure things are fair, right? Will be the high order of the day. It could also be that we're all really just making a whole lot of showmanship about appearances with families, right? And making, you know, pretty pictures with images of families as part of our action plan to achieve something. But if you see that, you'll probably see what the game is. But also, now that you know what we're looking at with the combinations, you'll also take a second look just to see if that's actually what's happening. And it may very well be. Not everybody is scrupulous. There are many unscrupulous people in the world. You just got to be more aware of them. Okay, and here's something I thought was really interesting. Mercury will be stationing conjunct Arcturus. So Mercury will be stationing in the Gemini decadent and the Leo duadamsha. Again, well, Mercury stationed in its sympathetic decadent, or its own decadent, is always very good, right? Mercury, because Mercury rules Gemini. So we can expect communications and the information and how information is distributed, and words, the words we choose, the things we say, the things we don't say, and information, all of these things to be the high order of the day with this Mercury station moving forward. With Leo, again, showmanship, performance, and also remember, Leo rules children. So Mars and Mercury both have a Leo connection, which suggests that children may become highly emphasized at this time. Arcturus is the fixed star that it's a very lucky fixed star, a lot of protection. So Mercury conjunct Arcturus gives an extra boost of luck and success with anything that it puts itself in the employ of. So communications and information gathering and information dispensing, as well as young people, because Mercury rules youth. So those three things, information gathering and giving, communications, and young people will get an extra boost of success and support from the cosmos. This is a very powerful time. One of the things I would also expect with that is to see the younger generations more mobilized now than ever, but more specifically mobilized and being successful with their mobilizing efforts. So beware the next generation. They're coming for you, especially in those election polls. Or not polls, those elections in November. So we may actually see these young kids turning out en masse and successfully rocking the vote. So woohoo, that will be fascinating to watch. And finally, in the month of November, some other things that are notable I thought was interesting is Venus, Mars, Saturn, and Neptune will all be in their rulership, giving them extra emphasis and power this month. Venus in its rulership of Libra, Mars in its rulership of Aries, Saturn in its rulership of Capricorn, and Neptune in its rulership of Pisces. So for those of you who are studying astrology, I'm going to let you go ahead and take a look at that and look at those keywords and see what that might mean. Alrighty, and this brings us to the end of the year, December 2020. And the theme for this month is I am Spartacus. No, I am Spartacus. No, I am Spartacus. We are Spartacus. Great line from the movie. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. Um, and Kirk Douglas, the old version of it with Kirk Douglas is the one you want to watch. Most of it is Kirk Douglas is just, good God, that man is handsome. Oh my God. Anyway, yeah, Kirk Douglas, baby. Okay, so December brings us to the close of the year, and it's the end of the year and the beginning of a whole new cycle of life, because in December, the things that are happening is Jupiter and Saturn will both be entering Aquarius. It is literally a whole brave new world we're moving into, and it's a good thing. Remember, Capricorn is the leader of the group, right? Aquarius is the group itself. So this shift into Aquarius with Jupiter and Saturn, which has to do with social order and social rules and social structures, Jupiter and Saturn, puts the power in the people. So being people focused, not ruler focused, is where we're heading into. And given everything we've just been through in these last, few years or more, we need this. And this is especially significant in places where this drama is being played out right now in 2019, like Hong Kong, right? So Capricorn, Saturn in Capricorn, Jupiter in Capricorn would in the Hong Kong protests right now in 2019 would represent Capricorn, the social order and the social structure and the social power, all the social structures and rules and power bases in Capricorn, Jupiter and Saturn, are in the hands of a few elite that manage the groups, which would be China. And China is very much about authoritarian control of the populace. Aquarius is not only rules diversity, like literally random people from all sorts of walks of life, right? It also rules the populace itself. So Hong Kong and the protests, the youth protesting, is represented by Aquarius, the people themselves. So with Jupiter and Saturn entering Aquarius, the power shift is moving from the hands and the minds of the few elite making decisions for everybody else to the greater population, the populace being ruled and them being intensely involved in the decision-making processes and the directions that things need to go. So the breakup of power is going to go from the handful of the few elite to the hands of the masses. And I realize this may sound like it's going to be just messy and chaotic, because anybody who's ever had a team meeting in a corporation or a business knows that anytime you get a team involved, even less gets done, because it's all meetings, and disagreements and petty power plays and just, oh my God, and people wonder why folks who work for the corporazi are insane, like in not necessarily a good way. The job will do that to you. Anyway, so with that said, we also have two eclipses. We're starting the Gemini-Sag eclipse this year in 2020, and in December is no exception. So we will have a solar eclipse at 23 Sag, and we'll be finishing up the Cancer-Capricorn eclipses with an 8 Cancer eclipse. Now this 8 Cancer eclipse, just so you know, at the end of December will involve the USA former president, Trump, because his Mercury is at 8 Cancer. So I would expect to see him in the news prominently around the time of this eclipse or when this eclipse gets activated. The more important thing is that we're starting the Sag-Gemini eclipses. So it's a whole new cycle of life. And this is on top of this grand alignment that will not that will be in effect until 2043 in Capricorn. So it's literally a whole new world we are building as we move forward, effective December 2020 and January 2021. Oh, and it's going to be a brave new world come 2021. We're looking at Jupiter in Aquarius, Saturn in Aquarius, and a Gemini-Sagittarius eclipse cycle starting in December. So Aquarius, Gemini, Sag, all of these things are not only houses of the common man and the populace, the greater unwashed masses, but it is also, these are also the signs of the mind and the future and diversity and ideas and innovations and inventions. We're heading for a renaissance in both technology and invention, not just on a large scale, also on a small scale. So the makers movement, which started to gain a little bit of traction here in the 2000s, should really find its place come 2021, which would be fantastic. So the return of DIY, figured out, let's, how does this work? Let's make it happen sort of stuff is on the agenda. It will be wonderful. So we're going to have reasons to celebrate. Hang in there. So the hard lessons of Saturn and Pluto are the most important ones we are ever going to learn because they offer us the opportunity to become exceptional, not average, not above average, not mediocre, not valued and important and celebrated, but only in this context, in this moment in life, in this environment, group, neighborhood, whatever. Saturn and Pluto gives you the opportunity to be exceptional in ways that are not limited to your tiny little world. Okay. But there's a cost for that, and that cost is a very high one and a very difficult one to pay for many of us. But the more you work with it, the higher up that ladder of exceptional you can get to. In these photographs, we have Toulouse-Lautrec on the left, and we have Frida Kahlo on the right. They have both fascinating life histories. I highly recommend you guys take some time and go look up their biographies. Both of them have very heavy Saturnine influence in their chart. But the other thing that, aside from the fact that they're both artists, the other thing that is similar between them, the common ground between them, is the tremendous amount of suffering, frustration, and physical pain that they had to endure throughout their entire lifetimes. And in spite of the hardships and the limitations and very real restrictions that were placed on their ability to live comfortably in society because of physical deformities, they managed to not allow themselves to get buried under that or be defined by that. They did not let those things define them. And what they did is, when they realized, or maybe not even when they realized, as a result of them not being able to fit into traditional roles in society and fulfill traditional duties in society, what they instead did was find new ways to define themselves rather than society defining them. Society would have defined them as throwaway people or cripples, but instead they found another way for them to define themselves, and they would not allow society to give them a definition and leave it at that. And this is kind of where Saturn and Pluto comes in. So this whole year has been a very Saturnine year, and it's very much about, paying your dues, and being committed and showing that you're really, really serious about being something or whatever, and the structures of our lives. So if you feel yourself getting buried this year, or being pulled in like an undertow at the beach, understand that the outside world is not the be-all end-all of how you are defined. You define yourself. And if you are in circumstances that don't allow you to fulfill traditional roles, that does not mean that you're a throwaway person or you're somehow crippled or defective. What that means is that you are being given the opportunity to define yourself outside of those conventions. You are bigger than that. And because you are bigger and meant to be more exceptional than that, you are being denied the opportunity to fall into a comfortable place of just being average. You're not allowed. And the way they made sure that you didn't make that mistake was by cutting off those avenues of settling for less. So the hardships of Saturn and Pluto are very often the most amazing gifts you can possibly get if you're willing to work at it and find a way, because it won't be given to you. You have to make it. So this is my quote for you. Maybe it'll help. This is mine. And this is what I try to live by. Although I'll tell you, it doesn't necessarily get easier when you're trying and There's still that little voice in your head that says you'd be doing something differently or being a different person. Success is not measured by where we stand. It is measured by how far we have come. It doesn't matter if you're a billionaire, if you started out as a millionaire. You didn't really travel that far to get to where you are. That doesn't make you successful. But if you are someone who maybe didn't make it through even elementary school, maybe you grew up illiterate or in an illiterate family in a poor village somewhere, or even here, right? And you've managed to graduate high school and hold down a job as a manager at a McDonald's. You are far more of a success than the billionaire who started out as a millionaire after inheriting his parents' or family's money, and building on that. Because success is not measured by where you stand. Success is measured by how far you've come.